There we go. Welcome to HUMANE Mind Live, episode 90. Baltimore trash? That's beyond my purview. Okay, it's already 9 o'clock. Oof. Sorry about that. I got caught up with work-related things and programs that did not want to let me save and did not want to let me do anything but tear my hair out for a second there. So, I gotta pause that because I'm hearing myself in the background. Alright, so we've got a couple things on the docket to talk about. What do you want to talk about first? So I kind of went over a few of the things. Maybe we should talk about the Baltimore trash thing to start with.
Yeah, I guess we can start with that.
Okay, it's just so this is something Tim Pool pointed out, but this is something that I thought immediately, and I still haven't heard a good explanation. What about what Trump tweeted is racist? And this is kind of the same thing. I was like, wait a minute, how is Trump talking about the squad right there? But apparently that's people are reading into Trump's mind and like, oh yeah, I know he said that as kind of a general statement, but obviously he's referring about these four specific individuals, and I know he said that as kind of a generic statement. He talked about rats and roaches and a trash, but really he was talking about black people. And you're like, wait a minute, what? Where are you drawing? How do you draw that conclusion? Well, he only...
The person would say, for it to be racist, you actually have to bring up race.
Yeah.
Say something about black people or brown people or white people or whatever. That, or it has to be heavily inferred due to...
No, well, so I mean, they are so the CNN host who ended up crying on camera over this had to go to football field length stretch to connect these, going back. So every time he talks about infestation, he's talking about people of color, and you're like, what? Crime infested, Ebola infested. Those are common phrases. Crime.
Don't have any. In fact, rat infested and Ebola infested have nothing to do with people.
No, it's the city itself. That it's not that if you went to okay, Sweden is rape infested. Is that that's because of people of color? Well, I guess maybe there might be a bit of that in there, but no, I probably shouldn't have said it. Hey, there's saying things like.
No, see, that's a perfect example. Because Sweden's rape statistics have gone through the roof since mass migration from the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
People trying to flee whatever's going around Syria, so they've got a lot of refugees.
Yeah.
So you could draw on your own a conclusion that due to this mass immigration, just kind of open borders and people running in from Syria and wherever else in the Middle East, and the rape statistics have gone up, your brain is naturally going to correlate that. So people simply say rape is drawn up. Your brain connects the dots without you thinking about it, saying, well, you're implying that it's because of the immigrant. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not because of their race. It's because of their attitudes, their culture, the lifestyles.
They have a disregard for Europeans.
Yes, disregard for Europeans, disregard for European law in general.
Yeah, anyone who is not of their own, not part of their culture, didn't come up with them, whatever, they don't care. They're treated as kind of subhuman, somebody who they're allowed to do that to, and they're kind of encouraged or supposed to do. But that still has nothing to do with race.
Yeah.
That's entirely culture driven, and not everyone that comes up from this mass immigration is like that. It's just some people.
Yeah, and so
the brain is naturally connected because it is primarily one particular race that has caused that to go up.
Well, here's the other thing is because we've had immigrants from Ghana, Uganda, Botswana, South Africa. Those immigrants come to the U.S. and there is not a increase in crime or statistical rape or violent crimes with those individuals, and you're like, oh, it's but they're black. It's cultures. There are specific cultures, and it's not because the people are not because of their skin color or because of their racial genetics, or it's a mindset of people from Middle Eastern countries mostly, where it's a disregard for Westerners, a disregard for Western law, a disregard for people in general who don't match either their skin tone or their religion, and in most cases both.
Yeah.
So
Topic. It's not just their mindset; it's a mindset of intersectionality. When you deem race as super important, you're going to pick that out. That's going to be one
yeah,
of the common denominators.
yeah,
So that's
it's
why, back on the whole Baltimore thing, if Trump says it's crap place, crap hole, all these people that are intersectional, that's part of their belief system or their ideology is intersectionality. They're instantly thinking he's talking about black people in Baltimore, and that's the reason that it's that way.
Because he
brought that up. No race was inferred.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders said similar things about Baltimore. Nobody cared. Nobody said, oh, he's a racist. The other thing is, just a week ago, Trump was criticizing Nancy Pelosi and San Francisco because there's literal shit in the streets in San Francisco. He's talking about, like, there are hypodermic needles and human fecal matter on the streets of San Francisco, and he criticized Nancy Pelosi for that. Where was the cries of racism or sexism there? It's only racist and sexist when he's talking about a district where that is predominantly people of color, and where the representative is a person of color. Then anytime you criticize that, then it's because he's a racist.
Oh, it's kind of anytime he criticizes someone that is a person of color, or
same.
That is predominantly, I don't even know I guess Baltimore is, or parts of Baltimore.
Yes, that Elijah Cummings, the congressperson who was reprimanding or criticizing, his district is primarily people of color. So.
Yeah, I don't even like that term.
But it's their term. It's whatever. It's primarily black Americans. Or just black people who live in America, right? Americans who happen to be black. Whatever. Man, there is no right way to say any of this.
Yeah, there is. You would just call a black person the same way you would call a white person.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, there's no way to say that without them claiming you're racist. So yeah, it shouldn't even bother, right?
No, it's
but
just a descriptor. It has nothing to do with them.
But that kind of side tangent, something that came out this week that I forgot to put in the notes, but there was a list of words people couldn't say. It was by some Colorado university. Yeah. So there's things like you can't say man and woman, but one of the things was you can't say homosexual anymore. Homosexual? No, the correct word is queer.
No. That is a scientific term.
Yeah, you can't say homosexual though. That's a bad no word. But so then again, yeah. One of the words that was on the list that they ended up cutting from the final draft was America.
That's a word you're not allowed to say? What is happening?
Dude, yeah, the whole list is it sounds like something you would read from The Onion or from, Babylon Bee or one of these parody sites or parody accounts. But this was a legitimate thing that they produced as words not allowed on the campus anymore. Now,
the country that they live in, that they are a citizen of, they're not allowed to even say the country.
Yeah, well, that was scrapped from the final draft, but there's ridiculous stuff in there. Like, so some of the things were stupid, because you can't say man-made. You say human-made.
No.
No. Wait. No. It's like, no, that was one of the words. You're like, wait a minute. If man is the problem, and you need to remove man, why did you put human? It's got...
Yeah.
It's got man in it already. You didn't remove man from the word.
You've already taken things out of context. It should have been people made or something.
Yes, people made. Well, I suggested person made, but then son is in that word, so you have to put that. You have to replace that. With,
Just say mankind it almost exclusively never just means men.
No,
Unless
that's not how
compare it
Latin
to,
languages work or romantic
unless you
languages work.
compare it and you bring up womankind as in there is a distinction between mankind and
Yeah,
womankind, then you're taking that kind of out of original context,
yeah,
but it's clear what you're talking about.
yeah.
But with
So
mankind, it just means people.
so this is the case
But
in every language where there are gendered terms. The masculine includes the feminine. So this is true of Spanish, and I believe French is like this as well, where there are terms where you use one word for a woman or the female version and one word for the male version. But if you say the male version, that can include a mixed group. It can either be an
oh,
exclusively males or it could be males and females. Now, if you
well, here's
use just
where
the
all of
female
that stuff.
term, you're talking about exclusively female.
So here's
That's how it's
where all
always
this
been.
makes no sense, right? If you can't say man-made because it sounds like it's inferring that men made it and it has nothing to do with women and women can't do it. You're kind of trying to split. They're trying to bring about equality, but the only way they can do that is by separating men and women.
Yeah,
Like the term woman has man in it.
yeah,
And at what point are they going to ban that word and say we have to come up with an entirely new word for women to just to distinguish them from men, and yet we're supposed to believe that
well,
it's all equal.
well now it's
Other than
womexin,
things just being called man-made,
right?
and they're included if we're supposed to be about equality.
So
Does
the term woman is supposed to be womexin, where it's WOMXN.
nah.
And that's to include Latinos and non biological women. What?
Latinos.
I don't know. Latin X, because it's not Latino and Latina. It's Latin Latinx, and you're like, no. I don't understand there is no rhyme or reason. It's all nonsense.
What does that actually have to do with anything?
Because you just replace the A with an X, and then it's no longer has man in it. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of nonsense. That was just a side tangent to talk about the PC nonsense, but yeah, I really agree with Tim Pool on this because he did a video where he was talking about similar things. He brought up a bunch of different, not just this the language thing, but a whole bunch of different incidents where he's saying, yeah, it's not about truth, it's about power. And I was like, yeah,
What it is.
yeah, that's
Our left is clamoring for power because the more extreme they become, the more they feel they deserve, but the more they are losing.
yeah. And that's entirely what it comes like. So everything they do is all subjective. It's like it's wrong when you do it, but it's fine when I do it. It's you're a hypocrite when you do X, but I'm not a hypocrite when I have two contradicting ideas and all. It's all this compartmentalization, all subjectivism, and that all stems from the
Selfishness.
from selfishness, but it's that what's that postmodernism ideology where they're like it's so there's two phrases that come out of this: nothing is true, everything is permitted, and there is no truth, there is only power. Both of those sentiments are spring out of that same mentality, right? So both of those terms or those phrases arrived from kind of Marxism ideology. And even though the nothing is true, everything is permitted kind of predates Marx, because that's from, what's that? From some ancient writings of, but, yeah, so that predates Marx, but it's in the same ideology as Marx.
But the strange thing is,
Marxism.
they claim to be representing minorities, right? Trying to give voice to those without power or bring about equality between everyone, so lifting up people. However, those type of mentalities are dangerous because if there is no truth, only power, it means you can lie, you can cheat, you can belittle somebody else, so that way you get power because it's all in your benefit and you have the greater good in mind. So kind of the ends justify the means mentality. It doesn't matter who gets hurt as long as your idea of what's right gets done. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, as long as it's your idea of right. And it means that you no longer have compassion for fellow humankind. can't
Yeah.
actively have that mentality and think that you need to take power in order to dominate, to set things right, because you're going to be stepping over a lot of people. You're going to be hurting a lot of people. So where is your actual compassion for humanity? It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It's a
It
farce.
makes you feel that you are morally correct, that you have some sort of morality to stand on. It's just a crutch.
Yeah, but it's all in your own self-interest, right?
Right.
It's like the I feel sorry, like, oh, those poor people, I'm gonna help them out because that makes me look good.
Correct.
Everybody look at me being so noble, being so moral to tell somebody else to help somebody else.
Basically, yeah, they're not doing it because they actually care. They're doing it to promote themselves.
Yeah, to promote themselves, to get themselves back. Yeah, so it is a yeah. So I guess I was slightly wrong by saying that both of those phrases kind of are rooted in Marxism. Both of those viewpoints are entirely based in leftist ideology, though. That's yeah. All of this puts someone firmly on the left. If they believe that there is no truth, there's only power, or that nothing is true, everything's permitted, or if they are of the opinion that
But if everything's
that there's
permitted, then that would mean nobody-
collective guilt, or sorry, collective. No, what's the phrase? Is guilt is individually placed on someone for something the collective did, but individual responsibility is lost in the collective, right? That's the way it is.
Pretty much.
Yeah, guilt is individual, responsibility is collective. I think that's how that's right. The collective, like a group did something, and you're a part of that group. You're responsible, so you should feel bad and you should pay reparations. But if I did something, nope, that's not my responsibility because it's distributed to the whole group. Right? That's also leftist.
Well, say along the lines. So the phrase you said, where when everything is permitted.
Yeah, nothing is true. Everything is permitted. That's from like Assassin's Creed, but it predates Assassin's Creed. It's from some kind of I gotta look it
I
up.
mean, that's definitely the way they act, because they're talking about people should be able to be free to live the way they want. That's where we get all this weird gender non-conformity or whatever. People should be able to, in their heads, believe they are whatever they want to be. So now we got weird animal kin and just whatever. But with that same mentality, that means if a racist wants to be racist, they should be allowed to be racist, and there's nothing you can say about it. Because it's not wrong. That goes along with the same line of thinking. If I choose to discriminate against a group of people, I should be allowed to, because everything is permitted. Still there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm looking up this "nothing is true." I'm trying to the origins of it because I know I've looked this up like 4 or 5 times. It's one of those things I gotta keep looking up because I can never quite remember. No, that's fandom stuff. Now, what's the actual? I mean, I'm seeing just a bunch of references to the Assassin's Creed game, and I'm like, no, I want the actual text. There we go. Okay, so it's actually from 1938. Okay. Yeah, so this was actually after March then, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the original quote is derived from 1938 novel Alamut by Vladimir Bartol, which tells a fictional account of Hassani as-Sahab, a leader of an Ismaili branch of the Shia Islam and founder of the Hashashin order? Wait, is that just assassin with an H? Yeah, yes it is. Hashashin. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I guess so that's a fictional novel. Yeah. So parts of Assassin's Creed are actually based off of this kind of novel. Which, yeah, 1938. Yeah, that would have been after Marx. Okay. So then maybe I'm not far off. I guess that is kind of deriving from Marxist leftists and all that.
And that's a scary thing to say. Nothing is true.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, there is no truth, so your truth is whatever you make it, right? That's.
But why is there no truth? Why is that statement true? That
It's not.
Truth? And if there is no truth, then that statement is automatically false.
Yeah, it's
contradictory.
It's contradictory. It is. It's one of those things. But if there is no truth, then you can do whatever you want, and that's the mantra that leads to nihilism. That was like the leftists say that as if it's a good thing. Like, there's a lot of atheists who also claim to that same kind of ideology. Yeah, it's very dangerous. It led to things like the Holocaust. It led to the Gulag Archipelago.
What those mass murderers pretty much have in their head.
Yes.
Human life means nothing. There are no repercussions for me taking this action.
Yeah.
I want to shoot 50 people at a concert.
So,
I can do it.
yeah.
There's no truth.
Yeah, it's... And as Jordan Peterson said, that's what the realization of how devastating that was is what led Nietzsche to write, "We have killed God, and there is no amount of water to wash his blood from our hands."
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you're like, yes, you remove truth, you remove order, all that is left is chaos and death. And we saw it play out countless times in the 19th, or the 20, what are we in, the 21st century? Wait, so the 1900s is the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Is that how that works? Yeah. So we've seen that play out countless times in the 20th century, and in numerous cases in the 21st century in places like Venezuela and North Korea. Like, when you make up your own truth and anything you want, yeah, it is a scary statement, but it seems to, like when you hear it at first, you're like, oh, hey, that's kind of empowering. Oh, that's kind of liberating. But you don't think about the long-term consequences, because the long-term consequences of that is always death and destruction.
Yes, because humankind becomes devalued. There is no reason to preserve human life.
Yeah.
What's the point if it's not a truth?
And
with your great enemies, you feel that you now are empowered to take action because there is no...
Yeah.
They don't have to survive. That's not a truth. They have offended you, but in return, that means anybody can come wipe you out, and there's nothing to protect you either.
Yeah. And it is unintentionally an argument for might makes right. Right? There is no truth, so as long as I can get away with it, or if I can overpower you, then hey, that's what is. That's what happens when you remove truth. All that's left is might makes right. Which is that? Yeah, and arguing for might makes right is counter and like what's that? Not.
That would be saying Genghis Khan was good.
Yes.
He was right. That would be saying Hitler was right.
Yeah. And well, the other thing is saying the argument might makes right is self-defeating, because if might makes right, why bother saying might makes right? I've talked about this on the show as far in previous that the argument itself is self-defeating, because if you actually believed might makes right, you would just overpower your opposition instead of trying to convince them with words. That's yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit too much thought put into.
Yeah, it's because you have to actually think things through which is something. If you talk to a lot of leftists, you realize no, they never think anything through. They think everything on the surface level, and they're like, "Oh, that's as far as I need to go. Sounds good. Let's." And you're like, but if you take these things, if you take both of these ideas and just go one step further, they conflict with each other, and you hold both of them. So
I don't know. That's what breeds radicalism from anywhere.
Yeah.
If you're an atheist, that's what's breeding this antifa radicalism, where they think they deserve the right to go out and just beat up people on the streets or do what they want, basically become a mob. That's what makes Muslim terrorists, because they haven't actually sat down to analyze why it is that their Allah would have created a world where they're supposed to blow up 2/3 of it.
Yeah.
That, what kind of God does that?
I don't know.
A deft one, not a very intelligent one. And same thing for Christianity. The Christian zealots who just accept what they're told at a pulpit without sitting and reading the scriptures for themselves and analyzing, hey, is this real? Or is this one of those, preachers that just trying to make a buck and say out, hey, you're gonna burn in hell unless you pay tithes?
Yeah, and is this what the actual meaning of that scripture is, or are they just cherry picking things to promote their own? Yeah, that's why the Bible says, "Study to show thyself approved." It's like, no, it's like not a lot of people. They go to church, they sit there, they listen to the pastor, and they expect him to teach them what's in the Bible. And it's like, well, the Bible says no. You don't rely on anybody else. It's you. You need to personally study. You need to draw that. Your relationship with God is personal. Stop putting it off on somebody else as if they are your lifeline to God. But it's the other thing, which is which is the Catholics kind of do all again, highly anti-Catholic, not the people but the religion itself. They you pray to this saint for that, and you pray to that saint, and they're like, no, that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says you got a direct line to Jesus Christ. Don't go through a middleman. Go to the source.
When they say don't do that.
Yeah.
You come down and say no.
Yeah. If it's
Don't pray to us, not us. That's not us.
Yeah.
Wrong people.
And there's numerous examples of angels, right? Angels coming in and people start with, they're like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah,
No,
right.
not. Oh, sorry. I was thinking you were talking about the apostle. Yeah. Yeah, angelic beings, apostles also had situations where like, whoa, not us, him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even from a non-Christian perspective, that's the same thing that's happening on the left. Is they are simply being taught it, accept it, and never sit down to think, does this make sense? What is the outcome? And is this something that I can hold on to and build a core belief off of? Or is it just modern sensationalism because we're all bored and need something to be angry about?
All right.
What?
All right. Well, this is I would like to keep talking about this, but it's already 9:35, and I think I think we got way off topic. But
correct.
Yeah, because we were talking about the Baltimore trash issue. The thing is,
very crappy areas.
Yeah.
And that's
what
Trump was pointing
no,
out.
have you seen the video footage? Or maybe I should show that.
I'll clip here and there, but like guys walking through broken down houses. And
Yeah.
Just like, almost like a war zone or I don't know, the Great Depression or something.
Yeah, maybe I can pull up some videos of that real fast because. So they were showing these houses, and people are just using them as dumping grounds, and some of them are occupied, and they're still just throwing trash in people's yards, and there's, that's the whole reason there's a rat problem. Yeah, I guess maybe I don't have time. I should have had a video pulled up, but
ultimately, Trump was correct in calling this out. He's not the only one that's in Baltimore.
Well,
it has some very rundown parts of that.
So Trump said this on, I think, Saturday or Sunday, and then PBS that same weekend released a documentary talking about this exact same situation. It might have been over the weekend, or it might have been Monday, but it was like within hours of him, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's so racist." Then PBS comes out with a documentary about Baltimore being this rat-infested neighborhood.
On the flip side of that, no, it's not racist because he never called out anything to do with race.
No.
Said it's black people or it's brown people or it's white people. Race never became an issue, or it was never brought out by him whatsoever.
No, it was brought out by CNN and anti-Trumpers.
For governance that they have. However, the guy he was attacking, I understand he's elected from that district. He's a House representative, right?
Yeah. I believe so.
Yeah, I think he's a congressman.
Yeah, he's a congressman. I don't remember if he's a representative or a senator. Pretty sure he's a representative.
He's part of the federal government.
Yes.
Representation of what their district is wanting from the federal government.
So.
Government issue.
Yeah. But the other side of that is he got his district billions of dollars to help with this situation. So that's one of the things that congressmen in the federal can do is while they're signing on to a bill, they can like, hey, you got my vote if you throw in X or whatever, if you throw in some money towards my district, that sort of thing. That's one of the tools that they use to leverage to get, to get things through Congress.
Yeah.
So he got his district. I think it was like I don't remember the exact amount, but I know it was over 1.6 billion, which was supposed to go towards resolving this issue. Nothing. It's worse now than it was before. And people are asking, where did that money disappear to? Because it didn't go to these rundown apartments. It didn't go to fixing or to getting.
The big issue is you cannot throw money at problems like this.
Yeah.
Because money will disappear.
And I want to specify, not million, billion. You got billions of dollars in aid from the federal government, from federal taxpayers, that disappeared. Whether
people in those areas need to start cleaning up their areas.
Yeah, that's another side of it. Yeah.
Take care of me. I'm gonna go work my butt off, make my own money, improve my own homestead.
Yes.
Make repairs, hire the current proper repairmen, take care of my family, and do what I have to become more prosperous. That's the mindset. That's part of the American dream. That's how they should be operating. And I understand the poverty.
Well, so there's another side of this, is a lot of these lots are abandoned. Like, so that's part of the problem, is they've got apartment buildings that are completely abandoned, which means, they're either being used by vagrants as, squatting nests and all that sort of thing, or like we saw, there's, or like, I don't know if I didn't have the video clip, but like the video clips show, people are using the lots as dumping grounds. And it's not where so the people are living next to these areas that have become basically landfills. And they can keep their stuff up and running, and they can manage their own property, and they can work their stuff and keep their own stuff. But that doesn't work if right next door you've got the Roach Motel and rats, because they're living there, they're gonna come into your area.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's
like whoever owns these properties, if they had their billion, say, hey, we'll give you $50,000 for this lot. That's all you're getting. It's getting bulldozed.
Yes, that's what's supposed to happen, but nothing is being. That money is going into either somebody's pocket, or it's going into this huge money pit. And there is no accountability on that. And so it's the people that live in the neighborhood who are doing everything right. Well, it's kind of being counteracted. So this is why there are HOA rules for this sort of thing, which. With an HOA, usually they have rules about keeping your yard at a certain length, and keeping, if you got broken down car in your front yard and all that sort of thing, you can get fined by your HOA, or by they'll file something with the city ordinance.
Paint chipping everywhere, repaint your house.
That's part of the reason, is so it hurts their property values if your house is in disrepair, because no one wants to move into a house and live next to you. The other thing is there's the rodent problem. If your grass is really high for a long time, that creates an environment where you get snakes and rodents and pests that they don't stay in the yard of the person with the high grass. They will go out into other people's yards and cause problems for neighbors. That's why you have those kinds of rules. It's not just to be, sometimes the HOAs are just, got to stick up their butt and, that one little thing is off center, so you gotta pay $100 to get it fixed. But there are legitimate reasons why you would want to keep everything kind of maintained. It's because you can keep your house and your yard and everything maintained as well as possible, and if all of your neighbors around you are basically like crack houses, well, it's going to diminish your own property, but it's also mean vermin are going to come into your place, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Pretty much. So if you don't really care about what kind of place you're living in, move out to, a rural area where you got a ton of land and nobody cares what you do.
And then your neighbors are so far away, what they do with their stuff, and if they're ruining their own lives, it's not going to impact you.
But if you're going to be living closely to one another, you're going to be living in small spaces like in a city, urban area. Do your part to upkeep your own property and do your job.
Yeah.
If everybody did that, this type of stuff wouldn't be an issue with. So it sounds like that congressman was trying to help, but ultimately was ineffective.
Oh no,
He pursue what happened with the money he had.
If you're familiar with his record, he's basically an Al Sharpton type.
Okay.
So, and actually, Al Sharpton went to Baltimore to protect him. Like, oh, see, I'm gonna combat the racism of Trump. So the thing is, Al Sharpton is defending Elijah Cummings and attacking Trump, and then on Twitter they're releasing video footage and images of Al Sharpton coming up and giving Trump a big hug from behind, and this is like in the '90s, so it's.
Trump was the man. He was
Yeah.
very good in New York.
So, yeah, there's a picture of Trump sitting next to Jesse Jackson, and they're having a conversation, and Al Sharpton comes up behind and gives him a hug from behind. And you're like, okay, sitting next to Jesse Jackson, having a conversation with Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton comes up and gives him a hug, but he's the most racist person in history. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the two people who are the most, everything is about their race, and that's all they're known for is bringing up racial issues. They're best friends with the most evil Nazi racist.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
I mean, it's very obvious. It's all hypocrite.
Yeah.
Al Sharpton's whole shtick is
Oh yeah.
money grubbing race baiter.
Yeah, and so this Elijah Cummings guy is along the same lines as he's using his minority status and the minority status of the people in his area to beg for money and plead, oh, we need help because we got all these
Basically self-congratulating, self-promoting.
Yes. But
number one,
yeah.
maybe helping some people out.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So what it looks like is either gross negligence in his ability to use those funds towards productive means, but it seems more likely that this is actually corruption and that money is going into pockets of donors and friends or possibly his own piggy bank sort of thing, because it doesn't seem to be pouring into the community.
People's names and reputations being something important. If I went and lobbied to have this money for my city and my name's attached to it, I'm going to make sure every cent of that is used for what I said it was for. Why would you not follow through on what you said?
Well, that's because part of it is there is no real paper trail on this. They get this lump sum of money for their, and it disappears. I mean, maybe there's accountants and stuff like that who kind of hide it and was like, well, this much went to that, and you're like, why are you spending $200 on a hammer? Well, it was expensive.
If you wanted to stay in power, wouldn't you think doing a good job is a way to get reelected? Saying, look, I got $1.something billion from Congress.
See,
here's how much we got. Here's how much we put towards the police force. Here's how much we put towards demolishing these rundown buildings so we can sell the lots.
Here you are. You're thinking that there is truth instead of only power, or that, right?
Not just truth. Even if truth was subjective, I would want my word to be my word, and if I say something, then that's what would be my truth, is what I said. People should still be able to stand by their word, regardless if they believe that garbage or not. It's not just a reputation. Why open your mouth and say it if you don't intend to do it?
Well, because they're trying to get as much as get while the getting's good, right? Get as much as you can while you can. It is not thinking about the future at all, and that's, like I said. So okay, so I think we've beat hammered this point home. Okay, so it's already 9:50ish, or almost 9:50. Okay, so we'll save that for the end. So the next thing, well, I guess we'll talk about this. I haven't heard anything new on this, but there was a shooting in Gilroy on, I believe this was Monday morning, or possibly Sunday evening. I found out about it Monday morning, but there was a shooting in Gilroy. Thankfully, the shooter was taken out by law enforcement. So shot and killed. I don't know what the total victim count was.
I believe it was 3: a 6-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 25-year-old.
Okay. And those were casual, deaths, right? Not just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and we don't know how many injured. And,
yeah, that's what I heard earlier today.
Yeah. So three dead in the shooting. Thankfully, law enforcement did shoot him and take him out of the situation. A lot of people are looking at the situation. Well, I mean, granted, the whole gun controversy has come up again. The one thing I did find out about this is, so some people were saying that this was, a white supremacist guy or just a white, typical white male. But the name, I think, was something like start with it. I have to look it up, sorry. I want to say it was Santiago was the first name or the only name given. And you're like, well, that's not a... Right? Am I being... It was something along those lines, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah, Santiago. That's the first name of the guy given.
Santino.
Sorry, wow. Yeah, Santino. Wow, I'm looking at it and I still said Santiago. Yeah, Santino. Yeah.
I don't know.
So what people were saying was like, well, Santino doesn't sound like your typical average guy, or like it's not a typical.
It doesn't matter. If
So
a lot of these are white guys, white males still, at least currently, make up the majority of any given
yeah,
intersectional population.
yeah, it's still the majority in the United States and all that sort of thing.
Extreme activity is going to come from the largest group.
But
Like,
you would statistically know. Statistically, like, if you're talking about like so you would think.
like mass shooting.
Yeah, you would.
Mass shootings like gang violence. That I categorize that as different.
No, yeah.
Mass shootings,
No, but
violence.
it's so proportionally, whites commit mass shootings at a much smaller portion of the population, and the amount of these mass shootings and attacks and all that sort of things that are coming from the Muslim population is proportionally like higher in the Muslim community, because they make up like 2% of the population, and their number matches the number of whites who commit such attacks. And you're like, wait a minute, you're talking about a portion of the population that is what, 37% is no, that's males. It's like 37% male and 34% female whites in the U.S., or it might be 37 and 38, something like that. But it's like 60-something%. Well, actually, I think that works out to actually be 70, right? Well, 69% to 75%.
Look up the statistic.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's something around 60% white, and the 60% white population of the U.S. commits the same number of terrorist attacks as 2% of the population.
Yeah,
That's so proportionally, the whites are not doing as much as based on the percentage of the population as the per capita.
So we run into issues like the Mandalay Bay shooter, right? At the
Yes.
concert, white
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
But then you get to stuff like what was that Texas church shooting, where it was a white guy that actually went and saved everybody for taking out the shooter. That's not really reported as much. Was that Springs?
Something Springs.
Spring something. I think that was the last 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then there's that Florida school shooting, and that wasn't a white guy. I think that was a Hispanic kid.
Yep.
But race didn't really get brought up. In fact, it was almost portrayed as if it was just another white guy out.
Yeah. So that's the narrative, and so the narrative for this, it seems like they're trying to paint it as just another white guy, but more than likely this person is of Latino origin, and so whenever the name actually was revealed, all of the another white male guy, all of that rhetoric kind of ended. So
Well, they were also trying to paint him as a white nationalist and a extreme far right.
yeah, so
Basically a far right extremist. But then the last thing he posted was a quote from a book that was called "Might Make You Right."
really,
That was the book by some Redbeard guy. Ragnar Redbeard.
and
Or Might is Right.
Ragnar Redbeard. Why does that name sound familiar?
So he posted something on Twitter about that. I think he was quoting it or saying this is his inspiration. But nothing in that book relates to conservative ideals at all. Not even close. But essentially, they're going to twist any sort of bad action like this.
Oh.
It must be far
Well, alright, so this ties back into what we were talking. So, heavily advocates egoist anarchism, amorality, consequentialism, and psychological hedonism. Alright, that's, hey, do whatever you want, yeah.
I mean, that's the same one, along the same lines of psychology behind serial killers.
Yes.
They have no remorse for their actions. It is just something that they feel they want to do, and so carry it out.
Yeah, and as long as nobody stops you, I guess you're right. That's the...
But, yeah, that has no basis in conservatism whatsoever.
No, and they'll try to paint it off as, try to paint it off as this is typical male or typical white behavior type thing. That's what they always try to do, and this is
typical. Out of millions, tens of millions of white people, the 99.999 something percent aren't running around killing anybody. It's not like it's a common thing. I just don't understand it. Yes, there are some bad people who do bad stuff. Some of those are white guys. There's also people like MS-13, which are Hispanic and go around chopping people's heads off. There's just bad people on the planet. The best we can do is cope with bad situations and try our best to prevent these.
Okay.
We're stripping the population of any sort of defense, taking their, right to protection and a weapon away, and then blaming your opposition for things that have nothing to do with them. It's disgusting.
Okay, so here's the other thing, is the gun he bought was illegal in California. People are saying it was an AK-47. It's not. I don't get why it's an AK-47 variant. I'm like, you could say the M4 is an AK-47 variant.
Say the AR-15 is M16 variant.
It's
Variant
it doesn't.
Just,
it's a similar style gun. It's not a. the functionality of the weapons is vastly different, because from what I understand, he bought
It is both dangerous and different.
He did The AK-47 by default is a machine gun, which would not be legal in any state.
It's fully automatic.
Yeah, you can have a variant of it that it looks like it, or it's a similar. But he bought this in Nevada, but it was a semi-auto, like pretty much any other gun, and so he did not. The gun wasn't illegally purchased in Nevada, but it was illegally transferred to California. It was legally purchased in Nevada. To transfer it across state lines into California was illegal.
But still, regardless if that's illegal, I don't even agree with that. The First Amendment.
So, but I'm saying is like, so what they're trying to do, they're trying to use this to say, ban. Well, some people are saying to ban AK-47s because they're stupid.
There's already gun registration.
Yes.
You have to pass a background check. That's been in place for decades now. You can't have an automatic weapon without express, usually government permission. You've got some sort of tactical reason. You've got you have a background in weapons expertise and the government permits it. You get a special permit for that gun. But anybody who's law-abiding, this is stuff already in place, and he took an illegal step by transporting this weapon, which was illegal, to bring it to California. So no matter how many laws they passed, none of that would have prevented this.
Yes, that's they're trying to use this to we need more gun control. I'm like, what would that? He already was breaking your already restrictive gun control rules. He was already breaking them.
Gun deaths are by weapons obtained illegally.
Yeah.
The vast majority. I think the only thing that maybe is done with legal weapons might be suicide.
Yeah.
But I don't know that exact statistic.
Yeah, usually guns used for suicide are not obtained illegally.
But all the gang shootings,
yeah,
turf shootings, drug wars, stuff like that, just mass homicide. Those are all weapons obtained illegally.
yeah.
The vast majority of those shootings, almost all of them.
Um. All right. So I don't want to hound too much more. Like, not enough information is known about that yet. That happened very recently, but
It's just
figured we
tragic
should
stuff.
talk about it. Yeah.
In this, I think we're going to see more and more instances like this, not just because things are being more racially divided, but because morals being tossed out the window. We got feminists and leftists joining hands with, Muslims and their extreme opposition, and yet they think they're buddy-buddy. I'm not
All right.
bashing Muslims there. There's plenty of good
No,
ones, but
there-
the union makes no sense.
So that's another. Oh, sorry.
Moral-
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your point there, but there's another video clip that's been circulating around of a Muslim woman berating a I guess a queer person who's wrapped themselves in a rainbow flag, and I think this is in the UK, because there's an officer standing between the two. He's wearing like this bright yellow vest, and he's keeping the Muslim lady from hitting the other person, and she's saying, "Shame on you! You're disgusting." and the everybody's quoting like, "Yeah, okay, leftist, pick a side," because like which. Yeah, you've got this LGBT person wearing the rainbow flag, and and you've got a Muslim saying shame on them for being what they are. Pick a side. So it's kind
I
of.
would say that's a good segue into another issue that's recently popped up. I don't know if you had it on your list. The ball waxing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think we talked about that last week, didn't we? Oh, yeah, there was, good thing, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up, because there was something I wanted to add on to that. So this person is actually being sued for sexual harassment. There's a whole lot of evidence against this individual for being, manipulating little girls and trying to send them, I brought that up, right? Trying to show them child pornography. I think I brought that part up.
That was brought up last week. The pool party was.
Yeah, the pool party, yeah. So there's an instance of this person talking to a 14-year-old girl. He's in his 20s, knows she's 14, sends something like, "Oh, I can't believe this just happened. I clicked on a link in Facebook and it ended up being child porn."
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then he says, "Oh, this I thought it was fake at first. Do you want to see it?" And then asking the 14-year-old if they want to see this.
Who would do that? I think
A crazy person.
If that was legit, would have pulled the power cord out of their wall and said, "Well, I'm done with the internet."
Yeah.
That's the same reaction.
Yeah.
Shut it down. I'm off the internet. No power. I'm gonna go flip the breakers off at my house. I need to go take a cold shower.
Yeah. That computer is dead. It needs to be just douse it in gasoline and burn it in the backyard. You can't. Oh, sorry, all the game data on there, it's gone. Just.
I think that computer's possessed now, so let's burn it, get rid of it, bury it, 10 feet underground.
Yeah. That's the appropriate reaction.
Especially someone that says they're a kid.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, and there's also statements between the young lady who was involved in that situation. And granted, they're all older now; they're in their 20s. But there's an instance where she was in her 14s or whatever, and he was posing as a Canadian, like some Canadian pop group, like some girl group or whatever. He was posing as their manager or somebody who had influence with them, and yeah.
Dude is just a predator.
Yes, a predator.
Manipulate other people.
Yes.
By using this LGBT movement.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was going to bring up. You said pick a side. If anybody happens to be queer or trans or whatever, and watches this video sometime down the road, get away from that entire movement. You can still be queer, you can be gay, you can be trans, whatever. Just get away from that movement. LGBT plus has gone off the deep end. They will drag you down. You'll get buried right along with them. They no longer represent just you being you. Now they're being manipulated to see what they can get out of society, because he's already sued 16 different salons trying to force women to touch his genitals.
Yeah.
And we just went through this whole #MeToo thing where Harvey Weinstein did that. Now, the Canada government has actually caused a few of these businesses to shut down saying that he has a case because they have to accept this idea that if you say you're trans, people must accept it.
Yeah.
He's had no surgery. We don't even know if he's on hormones. I haven't heard anything about that. He just puts a wig and a dress on, went to all these places and said, I want you to wax my balls. And they're like, sorry, we only do women. But I am a woman because I'm trans. So if you are being forced to accept that ideology, you'll be dragged down with the rest of this crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because now even people on the left and a big part of the LGBT community is saying, I don't think we should be forcing women to touch male genitals.
But the other thing is, this person is obviously not suffering from some kind of gender dysphoria and all of that sort of thing. This person is a manipulator, and that's what the whole case against him and his trying to. Well, I mean, that's the whole story of why he was posing as a band manager to manipulate young girls, and he's actually. I don't know the exact situation, but it seemed like he was trying to get with one girl who was in like 14 or 15 or something like that, and she's like, oh dude, this guy's a creeper, and she posted that, and so then he gets one of these other 14-year-old girls to start making up rumors about the first girl, be like, oh yeah, to kind of discredit her, like, and there's also like admin privileges on this fan site or whatever, and using her to get the admins to kick the other girl off who was calling this guy out for what he was. So there's a whole lot of manipulation, and like there's a history of this guy, doing these sorts of things, stepping into positions and using existing systems to get his way.
He needs to be shut down. Like, yeah. He needs to pay back every single loss that these other salons that waxing parlors have taken. The ones that have been closed down, the money they've lost, the business they've lost, the defamation they've gone through because of that work.
And thankfully there is at least one lawsuit against this guy for sexual harassment against a minor. I don't know if it's going to go any further than that, and hopefully if this guy gets put in prison over that, well then he can't sue anybody for not waxing his balls.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there's people in there that are going to help him with that.
Okay, so this will be a nice little. He may even get the Epstein treatment. The Epstein treatment is apparently Epstein almost got suicided. I think this was over the weekend or possibly late last week. I don't know the exact time frame, but he was found in his cell with bruises on his neck. He's kind of in the fetal position of his cell in the corner. So, there's a couple of different speculations. One is either he's a complete pansy and tried to commit suicide himself using shoestrings or something else and failed, which doesn't seem likely because there are reports that the guards saw the incident and turned their backs, which, if you're talking about a suicide, that doesn't seem likely.
There are a few things in this world that almost everyone despises, even criminals.
Yes.
And fiddling with children is one of them.
Yes. So there's the other theory is somebody in the prison was just like, yeah, this guy's going to get his comeuppance because, pedophiles do not do well in prisons overall, especially one whose reputation is well known. So there's the second aspect, which seems plausible, is that he was attacked by a cellmate and the guards were just like, okay, yeah, you give this guy the justice he deserves. That's perfectly reasonable. Although you would think that's the end of Epstein, because you would think that somebody like that would have done more than just a couple of bruises around Epstein's neck. If you get alone time with somebody like that, he doesn't walk out alive. Epstein survived the attack, which...
Unless they just simply intend to torture him. They don't want him dead.
Yeah. So, the other information is coming out that his cellmate had a cell phone had a cell phone confiscated from him about a week before the incident. So, there's granted, this is where you get into high speculation and nothing really provable, but Epstein had a lot of powerful friends and a lot of enemies right now because he's threatened or there's been talks from his lawyer about working out a deal if he releases names of getting a commuted sentence.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, lot of powerful people would like him not to testify. And if they've got communications with somebody inside the prison, they could put out a hit on Epstein, and maybe this was a hit gone wrong. So those are the three going theories. One, he tried to commit suicide. Doesn't seem likely, especially given the meager attempt. Second one is this was just inmates taking it out on a known pedophile. And the third is this was a hit job that didn't quite go through. Or maybe it was intimidation. Like, yeah, don't talk. If we can get you in here, don't talk.
Regardless.
Yeah.
I don't know. I try to look for the best in human being and in people, but I have pretty much no remorse for him.
Yeah. So that's where it's kind of like the part of me is like, yes, finally something's bad's happening to him. But the other side is like, whoa, if he dies in there, that's the end of this. This all goes away, and all those other creeps that are incorporated, they go free.
Yeah, I like this whole thing to just break open, and anybody that he's been associated with, that's
like, even if that ends up being Trump, all these creeps need to go down with the ship.
Part of it, then he can go down as well. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That type of behind the scenes tie-in, elitist, disgusting perversion, it needs to disappear.
Yeah.
That is the core of corruption on what corrupts governments, what causes this bourgeoisie and the proletariat, this elitist up here. Is there separation from the rest of humanity, from what people hold valuable, and from morals.
And protection of kids that's the top. Like, that's why the left keeps them, manipulating that emotion when it comes to the border. It's like, oh, think of the children. Like, no, this is.
They're not thinking of their children.
Yeah.
That's their children are dead in the desert. Parents are, and their children are watching up on the shores.
Yeah.
Don't incentivize them to do that. Instead, have certain ports of entry, and say, you want to come in, you ask here, and that's it.
Yeah, because they know that particular, we have to defend our children. That's like number one on the majority of people's it's like, oh yeah, I can handle a lot for me. Yeah, sure, make fun of my spouse. My kids? No, that's where people take off the gloves. That's like, oh, hey, don't come after my kids. That's where people go full mama bear. That's yeah. All right. So, but there's not a whole lot of news with that other than he got attacked, and he's trying to use this to get himself a cushier prison, which. Right now he is on suicide watch in solitary confinement. At least that's what I heard. Yeah. So. But it seems like his lawyer is kind of pressing the situation to put him in a more lenient prison or possibly house arrest or something like that, which I hope doesn't happen.
Not house arrest. He's already done that.
And then continued to do what he was doing under house arrest, according to the witnesses. Okay, so I don't know if there's a good transition to the next. So we got two more topics I want to talk about tonight. I don't think there's a good transition from here. So this one's a kind of shorter one, is the Gab Goes God mode. So what that's in a reference to is Gab took their underlying architecture and replaced it with the Mastodon open source one, which is a decentralized network. I actually found this out from Tim Pool. I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. I didn't hear about this from any other real news source other than Tim Pool. But yeah, that's what's like, yeah, this should have been done a while ago. So what this does for Gab is they are now completely decentralized. No one can shut them down because their code is out there. The framework is out there. People can go and create their own little Gab nodes and interact with other people's Gabs, and nobody can interfere with this communication. Now, I would say that kind of makes Gab bulletproof. The only thing Gab doesn't have going for it is well, I guess two things it's missing is a monetization plan, because as far as I know,
That's
they
what
are
I was
still
gonna say.
they're
I
still
don't see how you
relying on
monetize the
crowdfunding. Yeah,
decentralized open source.
no,
And
yeah. There's no real way for them to monetize. So I'm not sure if they're just going to continue to rely on crowdfunding and just do a
that's what I'm thinking. I think they're trying to be the underdogs, the indie developers that are there to just
yeah.
service people, just to put a product out there that's not
So
going
what
to
what
manipulate them.
so what I think is going to happen is they're going to do an annual or semi-annual. Just hey, if you like this service we put out there, if you like this platform to continue, or continue to have upgrades on it and things like that, just donate to the Gab.
But my best guess is, since they were already getting banned by a lot of financial institutions.
Yeah, so yeah, he got kicked off of Coinbase, not only the Gab account but his personal account, which doesn't make any sense.
No, not at all.
Was kicked off of. He can't use PayPal, can't use Stripe, can't use any of the major payments.
Was already wiped out.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just like, well, F it. I'm going to put it out there for free, and people can just use it. And now you'll never shut it down. I'm going down swinging. That's
so. Yeah, but the downside to that is that means no real improvements from the Gab team themselves. Also, there's a pretty decent sized team behind Gab and Dissenter, because Dissenter I think is really ingenious, but again, it's one of those things. It's a browser extension. I don't know how they're supposed to be paying the staff to keep working and improving these systems.
It kind of depends. Some indie smaller projects like that do kind of take root to where they're not going to get any money from it, but they'll invest in it, and then if their name is tied to upgrades or whatever, then they have work somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like building a portfolio of their past work to be able to work on other projects or for other companies, but it's more of a work of passion because they have a belief system.
And that's what it seems like right now. So while that means Gab, the platform, will be around for a while, Gab, the development team, may not be. Because there is no built-in monetization. So the other thing is, like with Twitter, you can pay for promotions and you can sell things. Like you can end up building a business off of Twitter and using their existing systems. Actually, maybe not. Maybe Twitter was a bad example. Because actually Gab is kind of the replacement for Twitter. But yeah, but usually a social media system has a way for people to create their own revenue stream off of that platform in order to become, like Dave Rubin all he does is YouTube videos, and there's a lot of people who use YouTube exclusively, people who rely on Patreon and Subscribestar and make it a full-time job.
The revenue stream is based off of people viewing and wanting to donate.
So
it's no longer based off of YouTube and ad payments.
Yeah, so there's no way of somebody to turn, Gab into that same kind of full-time vehicle.
Kind of. If you can get a big enough following with Gab, because Twitter's going to ban what you say, and then you still use a Patreon model or some sort of donation model. But no, you're not going to get like ad revenue. You're not going to build it.
Well, that's the other thing is you have to have some kind of outside source. People can still do YouTube full time without going to Subscribestar or Patreon and still make a living, because there is, despite the Adpocalypse 1 and 2, there's still AdSense revenue coming in. And if you're looking at people, like PewDiePie and Mr. Beast, and they're getting thousands of dollars a month in AdSense alone. Not to mention all the other revenue streams that they have, like selling merchandise and all that. So
mostly what they're going after is political change.
Yeah.
If you discuss anything with politics or news and you're not a trusted news source, then you're demonetized or you're not recommended.
Yeah.
Everything else is fair game. All those
so
packages and whatnot, they make it.
Well, and so with that, the reason I'm bringing that up is other platforms where somebody can turn into a full-time career just using that platform. It's kind of a disincentive to use Gab. You're like, well, why would I use Gab when I can use one of these other platforms in order to keep my audience and actually make money off of that? So It's great that Gab is actually getting this footing and building itself to be this alternative to Twitter. And I'm glad it went. Now it's gotten to the point where there's nothing you can do to shut it down, because it's like right now, because of the decentralized platform they just switched to, it is basically whack-a-mole. If you shut down one server, somebody else pops up another node and Gab's back up, and then you got to shut that one down, and then two more pop up, and that is the whole. That's what I was talking about. I was like, when I was talking about building Funfair, that's the exact same structure. You can't stop somebody from setting up a server and just running their own Gab node, and now Gab is back alive and can communicate with all these people. You can't stop that. You can go around shutting down IP's address, and they'll just switch to a new IP address, or you can only hammer so many moles, and then there's going to be it'll turn into the Hydra, where you knock down one, seven spring up in its place. Good luck out beating that.
The main purpose of that is not necessarily to be a Twitter replacement as of yet. It's as Twitter keeps going down this slope of just banning people that they don't agree with and making up more arbitrary rules, or banning people, not even telling them what guidelines they broke. Just you said that man is a man, you're banned. Once they become so ridiculous that people just start leaving in droves, they'll have an alternative already set up. It's already there.
Yeah.
This is kind of the wait for the giant to fall on its own sword.
Yeah, fall under its own weight. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, and then we'll be here. So we'll see what happens.
And maybe then they can find some way to monetize it after Twitter crashes and after YouTube and all them, commit seppuku involuntarily.
What they could do is, if this is all open source and just open node, right? You can pop up a new Gab node here and there. If people start using Gab more often, is to have the team that built the original source code then make their own servers with upgrades and say, okay, now we've got a premium version that allows this, and this that you're not going to get off the others. Eventually, since it's open source, people may adopt code for it, but $20 a year or $15 a year, and you get additional features, and that money goes towards faster development of better features.
Yeah.
So it could be monetized later, or at least the development team.
So Linux is kind of like the leader when it comes to open source programming, and that's kind of, and I believe that is a similar, like the open source license for Mastodon is something similar, if I'm not mistaken. Linux is open source, but it does have a copyright. And what that copyright allows you to do is to create your own version of Linux that you can charge for.
Yeah, so you start off with the basic package, the open source.
Yeah, and all of the different Linux versions are compatible with each other. So you design software in Red Hat, you can still run that on Ubuntu. The versions are compatible. It's just there's certain features in one version that are not available in another. There's certain things that make it nicer for the user, like as far as development tools and things along those lines that are specific to a different environment. But if you build an application that will run on Linux, it'll run on any of these environments. So I think Gab's license might be something similar like that, where they can have their Gab specific version, where it's like, if you want X, all of these features, you're gonna have to pay us to use our license. Or if you're going to develop off of our version, then you have to pay us a royalty fee to expand upon it and that sort of thing. So they might be able to use that to monetize. And it would be similar to Linux's model. I'm not certain, considering Mastodon's open source, because Mastodon was actually founded by leftists, and leftists usually don't value money because they're not smart. It's like, we want all the open source stuff, but hey, poo on your money. So I'm not certain exactly about the copyright when it comes to open source for Mastodon. That might not be in place, where you maybe they've got it so that any version of it has to be completely open source and you can't monetize anything. I'm not certain on that. I looked into Mastodon as one of the ways of decentralizing my platform and said no. Because first off, it's just for blog, or what Twitter is just you post and that's it. Like you post your comments and then people can sub and all that sort of thing. It's basically like a virtual blog, and that's all Mastodon really allows for. And I was looking for a platform that would allow for video content uploading and also secure monetization, which Mastodon is not great for. It works great for what Gab does because hey, all you're doing is it's text content, so they would need some other system to do anything else other than text. All right. Last, I think this is the last topic. Yeah. So last topic is that's not in my purview, and this was the big news of the week. Was the Mueller testimony and how it was gonna provide all this evidence. I don't know what was supposed to provide because it said outright before all of this that he was only going to talk about what was in the report. So it's like, wait a minute. So everything he's going to testify on, you guys already have and you've had for weeks. What new? No new information was going to be provided. That was kind of clear up at the start.
When did the report come out? Was that like beginning of June or sometime in May?
I don't know. I don't remember. It seems like it was years ago, but probably.
I think it's been at least 2 months.
Yeah.
Now. But anyways,
it was forever. It was decades ago in internet time.
My guess is they were hoping is if they could get him on the stand, they could kind of bad cop him enough to make him slip up and say things that were not in the report. Just kind of hound him on
yeah.
And
So,
slip up.
So they did kind of do that. Ted Lieu kind of talked him into that, saying the only reason you didn't indict him was because of the OLC? Is that the acronym? I forget the actual acronym, but he's saying because of this, because there is a standing policy that you cannot indict a sitting president. Which, yes, this is the thing that why have so few people been talking about this is everything about the Mueller report. That's not the way you go about a impeachment. You can't indict a sitting president because he has the authority to pardon himself should he be convicted by his own Department of Justice. He's the head of all of that. That
was supposed to prevent corruption and deep state activities beneath the president to try and boot him out off of false allegations.
Yeah.
They can't charge him with that stuff.
Yeah, they can't charge him with that, which is why the impeachment process is there to begin with. That is inside the Constitution for just such a situation where you're like, yeah, he's in charge of the Justice Department. Oh, what if he's a bad guy? What if he's a mobster? What if he's a criminal? What if he's what if he's acting in the U.S.'s what if he's acting for a foreign dictator? That's what the entire impeachment process is in place to account for. And so what came out about so I guess I'm putting the cart before the horse here because that's kind of the end of the story is that Democrats are now thinking about indicting. Or sorry, thinking about impeaching, not indicting. I used the wrong word. They're looking into whether they should look into impeachment or not.
Yeah, maybe they're still waiting for the rest of the fallout or the rest of the votes to come in on whether what Trump said was racist.
Yeah, they don't want to announce that they've started the impeachment proceedings because that would be too much. No, so they're thinking they're starting the preliminaries to consider whether they should start the investigation of the impeachment process. Which
makes absolutely no sense. Elections for the next term are 1 year from now.
Yeah.
They have 1 year to get their act together. What good is impeaching him right now going to do?
Nothing.
That's just to put Mike Pence, whom they really hate.
Yeah.
What would this accomplish?
Nothing, which is why Pelosi is like, no, she's shaking her head and being like, yeah, this is not gonna happen.
If they keep pursuing it, it's just gonna get shut down. They don't have anything to actually impeach him on.
Yeah, they don't have anything to impeach him on.
In his report is Trump's a jerk, He likes to yell
Yeah.
and make statements that sound rude, but he didn't really do anything illegal, so we can't. And he didn't collude with Russia.
Yeah. So, first, if they push with all of their power and get this impeachment through the House, it's not going to pass the Senate. Senate's going to shoot. Senate's going to shoot it like, hey, let's have a vote on this. Do we need to discuss this? Nope. All right, let's vote. All right, it was turned down. All right, move on. And I mean that because you're talking about weeks and months, possibly a full year of the House working to get this impeachment through, and they finally get it through, and it gets shut down in what, like a few minutes at the Senate. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So.
By the time we ever reach that, we're only months away from re-election.
Yeah.
They should be focusing on their own party.
Yeah.
And trying to make them all one person seem legitimate or not nuts.
Yeah.
That's all they gotta do is just come out with one person that seems like a decent human being.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's Pelosi is smart enough to realize, yeah, that's a bad move, and this is only going to hurt us in the long run. And the longer this goes, the worse we look, and the more Trump's numbers go up in the polls, and the worse our numbers get. So yeah.
I don't really like Pelosi. However, I will put that in her corner. Give her, attribute that to her. She's smart enough to know she went a little too progressive, and has backed off and said, no, this is only going to get us burned.
Yeah.
She recognizes that this is not where the party should be, not what they need to be pursuing. They don't even have a platform anymore.
Yeah.
The only politics they stand for is open borders and free everything.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Nadler, who I want to say, wasn't he was some kind of prosecutor or lawyer before he became a congressperson?
Like the grandpa from Up. Is that Nadler?
I don't see the resemblance to Up.
The cheeks and the grumpy, he's just like a mean.
Yeah. Well, I saw the pictures of him, and he's impossibly short, and he looks like a troll in real life.
Like not from Up, just with black hair and permanently pissed off.
Nah, I don't see the Up resemblance. But he used to be big and fat and lost some weight, and now he's just like odd shaped. Like, okay, the meaning of life, right, from Monty Python.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the big fat guy who eats and explodes because he's like his face isn't all that fat, but his body is like huge and that's what kind of Nadler. If Nadler looks kind of like that guy, although shorter and not so fat in the face. And it's like, yeah, it just looks like all the weight just kind of went into his lower region and just kind of like, right? Because the fat was just kind of sinking down and flowing. Like that's maybe like he looks like a skinny version of that. I don't know if that makes sense.
All right, that's enough with the body shaming.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just seems like to me, he seems like a.
Oh yeah, he looks like a curmudgeon, but I'm not seeing the Up.
I think
guy.
It's the cheek, because the guy from Up has, he's got like a big block face, but it's because he's got old guy cheeks. Maybe that's what I'm kind of attributing, or strong.
Yeah. He used to have jowls, and it looks somewhat normal, and then he lost weight, and now he just looks all kinds of mismatched
He's
proportions.
He's an older guy, but his whole purpose of this hearing, he just seems like a very anti-Trump. I'll do whatever it takes to just try and smear this guy. I mean, everything he's saying is not to uncover any kind of truth, not to uncover any kind of extra collusion information that was hidden.
Well, I think at this point it's a matter of pride. So that's him, but okay. So his stomach doesn't stick out and all that sort of like he lost a lot of weight. What is going on here? Why is his upper torso like not there? And that's what I was thinking is like it looks like his whole body is kind of like oozed out. It's like I don't know what the way of phrasing that is. I mean, yeah, it's just
pants. They're throwing you off. You just
maybe it is. Pulls his pants up real high, but it looks like everything just kind of went down his body and into his waist and legs, and you're just like the everything that should be up in your upper region is just pushed to the bottom like Play-Doh.
He's just trying to compensate for a little bit of a gut, so he's pulling an article, pulled his pants up too high, and it makes it look like he's missing about 7 discs in his spine.
Yeah,
Like
I don't know.
They got compacted. He just pulls his pants up too high. He's doing that old guy thing.
All right.
Pants don't belong above anyone's belly button.
Okay. But yeah, so the whole Mueller, it was
hilarious because he said he was only going to stick with what was in the report, and then he asked Bill Barr in the Justice Department to write a letter telling him he's only allowed to say what's in the report and cover his own tracks to make sure that's all he's allowed to do. So they wrote the notice and said, "Hey, you're only allowed to say what's in the report."
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't even remember what's in the report. He couldn't even say that. I mean,
Yeah.
You spent half that
Yeah.
just sitting there. Would you repeat that? What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about?
And the more famous, that's not in my purview, and then Republican congressmen calling him out like, no, that is in your purview because that's in your report.
In the report.
What page number was that? It's like, yeah, I just told you. It's like, it's page 170 in the first part of your report. Oh yeah. And then they asked him about Fusion GPS, and he's like, I'm not familiar with that. That's outside of my purview. I'm like, what?
Was it a senator? He's like, this is not a trick question. That is the name of the company.
Yeah. No, well, this was through the House, so these were all representatives. But
yeah, the rep.
Yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name, but he's like, are you familiar with Fusion GPS?
Yeah. So one.
That's not a trick.
Not a trick question.
They need to know the name of the company.
Yeah.
Is it Fusion GPS? He's like, that doesn't sound. It's not a trick question.
And I'm pretty sure it was on Tucker Carlson where he said, yeah, we found out. The only thing we found out is that we know more about this than the guy whose name is on the report.
I think he just sat in his office and had all his underlings go do the investigation.
Yeah. So there were a few things.
I just came and said, man, hopefully that'll get rid of Trump. But
Yeah.
then afterwards it comes out and it's like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, so there was one moment where Ted Lieu asked him, like I said, I brought this up a little earlier, was, if the only reason he didn't indict was because of that standing that you can't indict a sitting president, he originally said yes, and then he came back from lunch and was like, oh, no, sorry, I gotta clarify, or I gotta correct something for the record that I said this morning, and that is not correct, or that's not how you would phrase that, because he was saying that we didn't find anything to indict on, so therefore we didn't indict the president. It's not just because you can't indict a sitting president, or that's the standing. Okay, so that
was the point where one of them was questioning him, saying, so if he was not president,
yes,
there's something he could be indicted for.
No, that was not the question.
Yeah.
The question was cleverly crafted. It's like, if he was not the president, you could indict him. And Rob Mueller responded yes. And you're like,
if he had done something wrong, then yes, that would have been
Yeah.
adequate.
more, but yeah, they're trying to make it look like, yeah, it's like, well, yes, if he wasn't the president, you could indict him.
The same stupid loopholes they're trying to jump through on why they can't get him with.
Yeah.
Why am I missing the term?
But collusion, it's like, well, because collusion is not
collusion,
obstruction.
Obstruction. But that's like saying you didn't rob the bank, and then you were mad at the bank teller, and you wanted to get him fired for making up lies, and that's obstruction. It's like, but he didn't actually commit any crime, nothing happened. He's just mad at the people out attacking him.
Yeah. So.
He allowed, Mueller to do a full report, and they even asked him on that. Were you ever at any point impeded or hindered, or any of your staff? No.
Yep.
Nope.
Just get outright. I'm surprised he outright said that, because most of his other responses, he was, he was given the political response of not really answer the question and working around it, or so he'd either say that's not in my purview, which was his answer to a lot of the questions, or he'd give some kind of answer that's kind of circumventing it and not really giving a direct answer to it, and then the people ask him like, okay, that's a yes, right? And he's like, and then he eventually said, yeah, that's a yes.
So,
so
overall, he
yeah.
comes across as somewhat incompetent, or maybe
Yeah.
he's reading and forgetting stuff.
Yeah. So the other side of that is, so when they did ask him about stuff, yeah. So when the Democrats were asking him questions, they were obviously misleading, like saying, "Oh, if he wasn't the president, then you could indict." And I'm like, well, that's a general open question, and if you're asking a lawyer that, they're going to respond yes, because legally you can. What they didn't ask is whether they would. If he wasn't the president, would you indict him? And based on the report, there's nothing to indict on, so whether he's president or not, nothing happens. If this was,
I think the only thing they got is a couple offhand remarks from Trump about, "Hey, we need to get that guy out of here."
Yeah. If
but
this
because he deemed him incompetent, or as someone that was in opposition and trying to take him down, like what was that Page guy?
Yeah.
Someone actively working against him. So you could see why Trump would make those comments, but he never said fire Mueller.
Yeah.
Never took any action on that. Never hindered any. There was just absolutely nothing. And hopefully, after the fiasco, they do start an investigation as to where this dossier actually came from. I know we got a lot of information, but why did that warrant tapping Trump's office and potentially trying to hinder his legitimacy as president, or him being the legally inaugurated president? People are saying it should be illegal. He was, there was a whole collusion mess for 2 years. Countries getting split over all of this, and it turned out it was all lies.
Yeah.
How did these FISA warrants ever get issued in the first place?
Yeah. And so that was
you issued this.
So that was an interesting line of questioning. So one of the representatives was asking him about a contact who was in the report, lied to them 3 different times, and why he wasn't charged. And Bob Mueller said, "Oh, I can't get into that," and that sort of thing. But then he went on to press him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, so this guy is the reason Papadopoulos knew what he knew, and you went after Papadopoulos. You went after him, and so he got charged with something, but the guy who gave him his original information, you didn't go after." I was like, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." It's like, I think it's Meshev or something like that. It was interesting. It was not a normal name. The last name was Meshev or something, like some professor or some kind of academic. But this guy was questioned by the FBI and lied to them on 3 separate occasions, and they found out later on that he had been lying to them, but they never went back to him to pursue this, and instead they went after the guys who had ties to Trump. The other thing is they didn't investigate Fusion GPS, and Fusion GPS's ties to the Clinton Foundation or Clinton campaign.
The ones that actually got the dossier. That's what
yeah. Oh, the other thing, they asked him about Steele, and he didn't seem to know who Steele was, even though that's the guy who created the dossier.
That's the whole reason for this investigation.
Yeah, entire reason for the investigation. Yeah, there was the other side. So there's 3. So there was another. I forget the other one. So there was another one where they're like, yeah, that should have been what you investigated, and he either said that's not in my purview or I can't get into that right now, but that's exactly what Mueller is that's exactly what Bob Barr is investigating right now. He's investigating Steele, and he's investigating this Mahmoud guy. No, what was his name?
I mean, good.
Meshev. Yeah, he's investigating the sources of how all this started, which should have been something that Mueller's investigation picked up on. The other big.
Mueller's defense is the investigation was to see whether or not there was collusion between Trump and Russia.
Yeah.
That's all he was tasked with. So I'm guessing he took that as a very narrow scope and only investigated Trump's side.
Yeah. And
found nothing. And then he's like, well, out of my purview, which is exactly why he brought that stuff up and why he doesn't know the name of that company or who Steele is, because he wanted to be willfully ignorant.
So the other thing that was a big takeaway, so all of the wins in this were all on the Republican side, and the
they were the ones asking any real questions.
Yeah, so the other one was they hounded him about picking the people who were part of his investigation team and citing how they had given. So one of them was a lawyer for the Clintons prior to joining the investigation. You're like, oh, that should be a conflict of interest, right? He's like, oh, I didn't know that at the time. I was like, yeah, then why weren't you should have asked those questions, right? When you're hiring somebody to investigate, kind of doesn't make sense to hire somebody who is their direct opposition. Yeah. They're also asking about Lisa Page and what's the other guy's name? Starts with an S. Struck. Yeah, Struck. Asking about them and if he knew about their ties prior to them joining the investigation, pointing out that a number of the people on his investigation had donated to the Clinton campaign and not a single penny again, donated to the Republican side or conservatives or to Trump from any of these individuals. But oh, look, there's donations going one way, and you're expecting these people to be objective. Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on, and yeah. So they pointed out a lot of that as far as so that was something that he could testify to, was the building of his team, and Republicans were able to point out, yeah, this is trying to claim that your team was unbiased, really difficult to do when we've got all this evidence showing there's definitely a bias and it's one way.
Yeah. So either he was extremely ignorant and just paid no attention.
Yeah.
And he was competent at arranging this task force to investigate.
Yeah.
Or two, it was kind of known, it was kind of under the table information, so he didn't really think he had to act on it. But they found absolutely nothing, which means the people that actually wanted to get rid of Trump, did not like him, and were actively trying to fight against him, still could find nothing actually pointing to Russia collusion.
Yeah.
Which gives them even less clout. Had they had some Republicans or nonpartisan people on there that said, yeah, they don't really have any affiliation, they're just here to do the job, instead of seeming, a team that's got a couple of anti-Trumpers, that would at least give in their investigation a little more weight. Something to say, yeah, it was non-biased, but just from his election and people who he initially allowed to kind of work on his team, that already kind of shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Especially when they found absolutely nothing from that.
Yeah, so the other side of that is what makes sense is that because these individuals were on his team, that might explain why they didn't in prison for minor things like Flynn, whereas he said he didn't talk to the Russians before this date, but we found a communication with him 2 days prior, so he lied to us. Yeah, maybe you thought that was after the date. Oh, it's one of those things you could see that being an honest mistake, but no, they threw the book at him. And Roger Stone, you said you didn't talk to Assange. Look here, there's or you didn't get any emails from Assange, and look, there's an email from Assange in your inbox. Who knows if you read it or not? There's nothing important in it, but it's from his email address. All right, time to go to prison for years. They're throwing the book at everybody associated with Trump, but nothing was done about anybody with Democratic ties or any ties to the Clintons. And so the notion and why they brought up all these people on the investigation team who were in support of Hillary and who had donated to Democratic campaigns is could it be that these are the people behind your investigation when they see one of their own that should be investigated and isn't?
Well, that's the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
What was it? Right before that report came out,
yeah,
they were bashing Trump because he made a comment. Well, yeah, I would want to know if someone had information on my opposition.
Yeah.
But, who wouldn't?
But there was no information, so no crime. But
correct. But what they're saying is, if there's information, you had it, you turn that over to the FBI immediately.
It's but there was no information.
Why would Hillary's campaign go purchase this instead of contacting the FBI saying, hey, somebody from Britain has information from Russia about the Trump campaign, you guys should investigate?
No, they didn't do that.
That would have been completely legitimate. It would have started this investigation the proper way. They could have wiped their hands of it. No, they went and paid for it, got this dossier, had possession of it, read through it, tried to find something.
And then leaked it.
Asked out the FBI and said, Russia collusion, everybody. And it turns out it's all bogus. There's absolutely nothing, and it's all made up.
Yeah.
They can't validate anything in that dossier. So, and yet we're supposed to say they're the trustworthy ones.
Yeah.
They did the exact opposite of what they were bashing him for.
All right. Yeah. It's goofy. But I think we kind of beat that horse until it was a Mueller. All right, that was all I had on the agenda. So there are a few, I guess, lighter topics. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to talk about, but it's, yeah. Do you have anything you want to talk about before I go into the?
No, I don't think anything.
All right.
Major came up. That's
interesting. Okay. Yeah. So last week, I did talk about Eugenia or Eugenia. I forget. I think it's Eugenia. Eugenia Cooney, and recovering from some kind of eating disorder, and that was kind of the supposed to be the uplifting story at the end of it. Yeah. Eugenia. Yeah. And yeah, so this is something I found out today, is that for some reason the image that I was on for maybe 2 seconds of the stream is now the thumbnail for that. Oh well. But I do have a kind of follow up on that. So since finding out about that, there has been Jacqueline Glenn has released, I think, 3 videos now on the subject, and so Jacqueline Glenn is not what I would consider a credible source. She has a history of stealing people's content. She has a history of just kind of being, well, not a very intelligent, but also just like a kind of sleazy personality. But I think she's totally legit on this subject, because she talks about having personal ties to Eugenia Cooney, which that's legitimate. She knows her in real life, and they were friends. I don't know if this was prior to either's YouTube career, or maybe it's because of their YouTube careers. They have talked with each other outside of the internet and all that sort of thing. But like I generally don't think Jacqueline Glenn is a good or decent person. But based on the videos, I believe her story when she talks about Eugenia Cooney being in a bad situation, because Eugenia claimed that her mom and family told her to eat, but according to Jacqueline Glenn, the mom is the problem. The mom is a very destructive personality and incredibly harsh on her daughter, and I don't know if, so the mother is slightly overweight. I mean, she's not like eating Gilbert Grape mom or anything like that, but she's rather on the large side. And what makes sense is that she's taking her own body image and putting that on her daughter, and according to Jacqueline Glenn and several others that have made videos and talked about this sort of thing, incredibly domineering of their daughter, which, again, she's in her mid-20s and still living with her family, despite having a YouTube channel with millions of people and possibly a lot. I don't know her financial status, but you would think she should be able to live out on her own. I mean, it's like she should be able to be independent pretty easily right now, but it seems like as if her family is very controlling and manipulative. And Jacqueline Glenn was talking about a situation of why Eugenia even went to rehab in the first place is because Jacqueline Glenn couldn't get health professionals to her, but could invite health professionals into her own residence and then invite Eugenia there. And this is what happened, is she tricked Eugenia into coming to her residence where mental health professionals were there and could assess the situation, and they were the ones who recommended rehab. And after they'd gotten the assessment and after they'd actually gotten this interaction, that's when she actually went to rehab. It was forced rehab. It was not voluntary, as the portrait they're trying to paint from Eugenia's side. So what Jacqueline Glenn is saying is she's still in that environment. She's still at home. She's still with a mom who is the source of the eating disorder. So, after hearing that, I was like, you know what? I don't think that Jacqueline Glenn is a very genuine person because, like I said, she's like there's videos of her. So, like similar to what's that guy's name? No Bull going to a video and reading the top comments and then making a video where all she does is basically repeat the top comments in it. Also, people posting stuff on her videos and then she just repeats that verbatim as if that's without saying, "Oh, that's from this person." No, she just says it as if that's from her. The other thing is she made some video about Wiccan and then was reporting. Was it Vice or no? It was what's the other one? No, it was one of those like a BuzzFeed. So BuzzFeed made a video and it basically mirrored her video, and then she's calling it's like, "Oh, look, this is blatant plagiarism," and everybody's like, "That's half of your content is stealing from other people," and then BuzzFeed does it to you, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so outraged." So I mean, granted, but on this particular topic, it sounds like she did the right thing, and she was one of the few people in Eugenia's life that was trying to get her the help and did everything possible and probably burned a bridge of friendship in order to do it. So, I don't know what else to make of the story, but
if that is true, then that does sound to be the motivation, because why would you go through that hassle? Why would you go through any of those steps to try and get her into rehab, to get her help?
Yeah.
Unless you did care. So it all depends on if that's truthful. I don't know either of these girls. I don't watch their stuff, so I can't.
Like, yeah, so this is where that
most disorders are not entirely self-afflicted. Is that the right term?
I think inflicted.
They come from somewhere else, an outside motivation.
Yeah.
Unless their brain is completely miswired.
Yeah, well,
a lot of psychopaths, a lot of people with trauma disorders, it stems because something either happened in their past or has continued to happen, or they don't have a proper trust either in themselves or self-esteem or their loved ones. A lot of this stems from something kind of being out of whack outside of themselves that has influenced, and they've internalized it and basically made it worse for themselves.
Well, so there's a secondary. I think Jacqueline Glenn's story checks out more than the official story, because if you think about it, if she was your daughter, or do you think you or your ex would look at your daughter in that situation and be like, fine? No. You would be. You would think, I need to contact a doctor or some kind of professional and get her checked out, right?
You're not digesting food? What's going on?
Yeah, but for some reason, the mom, it's like, oh, she's fine. Like, there's instances of her in Eugenia's videos saying, yeah, we go to the doctor all the time. She's perfectly healthy. I'm like, what sane mother would look at their daughter in that, like, Jack Skellington looking and think, oh, that's fine. That's just normal. She's just just a little thin. She's just a little skinny. No, that's
sizes, and you can tell when there are some thicker people, but that it's not because they're unhealthy. They are a little bigger.
Yeah,
but it still fits them. And there are some women, some men that are just stick skinny, but that still looks proportionate. She looked deathly ill. Like the Ethiopian kids that they keep trying to donate $1 a day. And they're all like, bellies are swollen, but you can see their elbows and their joints popping out.
That's the level that she seemed to be at, and you're like, and
it looked painful to even stand or move. How did her muscles work?
Yeah, and so at that point, like, if she was not 24 or something, that you would be calling Child Protective Services on those parents. But she's a legal adult, so Child Protective Services can't do anything for her. But you're like, at what point do the parents look at her and be like, dude, something's wrong here. We got to call somebody. We got to get our daughter help. But neither of the parents seem to step in. And based on what people are saying about the situation is, the dad doesn't seem to have any sway in the family at all. He's just kind of there, and the mom is the head of the household, and she's very manipulative and very controlling. And so that's why I was like, okay, based on that, the story behind Jacqueline seems to check out more than these. Oh, well, I finally admitted it to myself and I went to rehab, but now everything's good. And because I mean, there's situations like, because originally watching the video, she said, oh, she didn't want to put a label on it. She didn't want to talk about the details, and I'm like, so at first I bought that, but then now with what Jacqueline Glenn has brought to the situation, now I'm kind of like, because if she talks about the situation, that would have been obvious to the parents, and if the parents were seeing this and not reacting to it, then you see that that's an abusive environment. So it seems like she was covering for them, although because yeah, and that's also kind of par for the course in someone in a situation like that where they, with somebody else has all the control and they make excuses for that person. They're like, like battered wife syndrome kind of thing. This you're like, oh, so there's elements of this story that are kind of tying together, and you're like, ooh, that everything seems to fit with Jacqueline Glenn's account of the story, and that seems to make a lot more sense than what the elements that are from just the one side. So I meant for that to kind of be an uplifting story last week, but this week, as I found out more information, I'm like, oh, this is what it means is that she's still in the bad situation that led to her unhealthy state previously, and what I fear is that's going to lead to remission, as opposed to, hey, she's finally turned things around and actually on the road to recovery. It more than likely, because if she stays in that hostile environment, it's going to lead to relapse.
Yep.
So that's unfortunate. All right. So the last story I have is this was let me pull this up before I actually switch to it. I wonder if there's a way to. Oh well, I'm just gonna switch to it. I know I was trying to get a better view or a closer up view. So hopefully you can see this. So this was probably the greatest thing on the internet. So I don't know if you can read this, right?
Is it a video?
No, it is a clip from Twitter. So Papa Roach tweeted.
Post the link in the Hangout chat.
Yeah.
There's a bit of delay from the live stream.
Right.
It could be sometimes it's like a minute.
Yeah, so I'll post this for you. So Papa Roach. I guess I should start with the sub or the underlying tweet. So this was Trump on July 27th tweeted, "No collusion, no obstruction, total exoneration, Democrat witch hunt." Papa Roach quote tweeted and said, "Cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort. No collusion, no obstruction." That is amazing. So yeah, it reads like their song. Yeah, sorry. Dude.
There it goes.
Oh, you just now pulling it up? Sorry.
Well, I had the page up, but I had to pull up the actual posting.
Yeah. Cut my life into pieces. This is my last race. Yeah, and so people respond is like, yeah, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, dude. That's amazing. Like this wins the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Papa Roach stands politically, but yeah, that was amazing.
I think they prefer not to even bring it up. They were just saying something that sounded funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not a lot of rock bands in politics.
Yeah, so
Them just don't care.
so there's Rage Against the Machine, but they're extremely
They're
socialist,
more anti-establishment, not really.
Anti-establishment, somewhat pro-socialist. I mean, great if you listen to Tom Morello talk, he's super into Marxism and all that. But good band overall. Yeah, Audio Slave I prefer more, but Actually, no, I don't. It's hidden. It like they're both
It's a
really
lot
good. So
slower.
yeah, yeah, they're both really good. I like. I mean, I like Audio Slave because of I like the singer from Audio Slave more, I should say. But Papa Roach or it's not Papa Roach. Wow, Rage Against the Machine has some amazing songs. So
Really awesome riffs. Stuff
yeah.
you just bob your head to. And great sound.
Anyway, so but I do know some pretty active bands that are libertarian leaning. So one is All That Remains, which I didn't realize until their lead singer came out and was talking about stuff, but he's pretty awesome. And Rush. Rush is pretty big into objectivism, so highly libertarian in their philosophy politically. Although they're Canadian, so they don't get to say anything in U.S. politics. They're Canadians, so they don't matter.
They need to fix their own stuff first.
All right, and that's all I had for today. It is 11 o'clock, so I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. Is there anything else you wanted to add? So that yeah.
Got nothing else today.
Alright, I'm gonna go. So thank you for anybody who did join us. I don't see anything in the chat. If anybody ends up watching this, thanks for joining me, and see you next Tuesday. And again, I forgot to hit the button after saying that.